Hello, this is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. President Biden has taken executive action to pardon all Americans convicted of marijuana possession under federal laws. Officials say only about 6,500 people are directly affected. Emma Vardy reports.
Getting a criminal record for possessing marijuana has imposed needless barriers for people when it comes to employment, housing and education, according to President Biden. And now thousands with convictions will receive a pardon. He's also asked the US Health Secretary to review how marijuana is classified under federal law, saying it makes no sense to be classified at the same level as the drug heroin. The pardons will only apply to people convicted under federal laws, and he's urging state governors to do the same for people with convictions at a local level.
US media are reporting that the FBI has gathered enough evidence to charge Hunter Biden, the president's son, with tax and gun-related crimes. He has previously denied any financial wrongdoing. Gary O'Donoghue reports from Washington.
The FBI has been investigating the president's son since 2018 over claims he failed to pay all his taxes on foreign investments and over forms he filled in for the purchase of a handgun. Now it's down to the US attorney in Delaware, a Trump-era appointee, to decide whether to indict Hunter Biden. Opponents have questioned Hunter Biden's work for a Ukrainian gas company while his father was vice president, and over financial dealings in China. The handgun issue is thought to relate to questions on a form which asked about drug addiction. Hunter Biden has acknowledged using crack cocaine.
The head of the United Nations nuclear watchdog has stressed that it regards the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as Ukrainian, despite President Putin having signed a decree to expropriate it. Rafael Grossi was speaking following talks with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev. Here's Danny Aberhard.
President Zelensky wants the International Atomic Energy Agency to condemn Russia's attempted expropriation outright. Rafael Grossi is treading more delicately, conscious no doubt of his upcoming trip to Moscow, as he pushes to get a security zone declared around the plant. Instead, he stressed that annexations were not accepted under international law, which his agency is guided by. Safety remains a critical concern. Mr. Grossi said it's being jeopardised by the increasing pressure the plant's Ukrainian staff are under.
The Ukrainian governor of Zaporizhzhia, Alexander Staruk, has said the number of people killed in Thursday morning's missile strikes on the city centre has risen to 7, with at least 5 people still considered missing. Local officials said 7 Russian missiles struck before dawn, with a further 3 hitting in mid-morning. You're listening to the World News from the BBC. The British Prime Minister says leaders at Thursday's inaugural meeting of the European Political Community, held in the Czech Republic, were united in their support for Ukraine. Liz Truss said the summit had given them a greater collective resolve to stand up to Russian aggression. She also held bilateral meetings on energy supply. In talks with the French President Emmanuel Macron, she agreed wider cooperation with France on nuclear development.
What we're talking about is how the UK and France can work more closely together to build more nuclear power stations and to make sure that both countries have energy security in the future. And we're both very clear the foe is Vladimir Putin, who has, through his appalling war in Ukraine, threatened freedom and democracy in Europe and pushed up energy prices, which we're now all having to deal with.
The World Bank says between 6 and 9 million Pakistanis are set to be dragged into dire poverty as a result of devastating monsoon floods. In its latest report, the lender said loss of jobs, livestock and harvests, the spread of disease and the rising cost of food threaten to impoverish people. Over the last 2 months, Pakistan has experienced some of the worst flooding in its history. The United Nations office in Haiti has warned that a new cholera outbreak may spread and has called for the easing of a fuel blockade that's preventing clean water distribution. 7 people have already died of cholera. The head of the UN's Haiti office said she feared an explosive increase in infections. The US has imposed sanctions on 7 Iranian officials, including the Interior Minister, in response to the crackdown on protests triggered by the death of Mahsa Amini in the custody of the Morality Police almost 3 weeks ago. The Treasury Department singled out the Communications Minister and the head of Cyber Police, among others, over what it called the violent suppression of peaceful protest. BBC News.